Hey there, welcome back to Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. It's Melissa. Glad that you're here. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Twin Oaks Farm Poultry, and we appreciate it if you are willing to interact with the video with a like or even a comment. We love to hear from you, hear your input and any questions or any ideas or your experience, and it's really inspiring. It sends us back to reflecting on our process and being inspired to just try to learn something new and try to do what we're doing better than we're doing it now. So we appreciate that. Couple things today we're going to look at. First of all, the water that we're serving to the chickens right now is yellow. So going to briefly explain why that water is yellow, and also want to show you, and we're going to go ahead and turn the camera around and do this because I've got this one particular bird in my sights. Going to show you, we've identified one runt in this flock, and so we have a good example of that right now, and example of why that becomes a problem as the flock grows. So right here, these birds at this feeder, we're actually looking at the one little bird we've identified as a runt in this flock. So here's three that are good example of this. Is pretty typical by just visual observation. This is pretty typical size, pretty typical target of where we want these birds. And on the other hand, here's an example of one. Got a lot of movement in the pen right now, but we'll try to follow her. Here's an example of one that we've identified is a runt. And so actually this flock includes 220 birds. So to identify one that is a runt, that it really doesn't bother me. We've tried to research, what causes this, and we have found that it tends to be truly more of a result of hatching conditions than conditions after hatching. So it happens in nature, and like I said, one bird out of 220 that we've identified as a runt, that really doesn't bother me. Now, what ends up being bothersome is looking out for the little bird that is the runt. In a lot of flocks, especially where there's just bunches and bunches of birds, it becomes really hard to manage runts in the flock at large. And you got a little bit of a visual over there. I wish she'd have stayed back there at that feeder just a little longer, because that's what the problem is. As the flock grows, and especially as the flock gets a little taller, gets a little more height, typically all the feeders and waters in the pen go up with the birds as they grow. And the problem for runts is that they're not getting taller at the same rate that the other birds are. So as the feeders and waters get taller, they get to a point where they can't keep up. They can't reach them at some point. So it is very typical to not be able to maintain runts separately from the flock at large. Now in our case, we're a very small farm. We have very small flocks. We have the capability to manage flocks of runts separately if needed. But you can see there, great size comparison. Those birds are exactly the same age. All the birds in this pen are exactly the same age. They're all 3 weeks old. And there's just a tremendous size difference in the runt compared to the other birds. And I don't have enough of them here to show you like 5 or 6 birds together. We don't have perfect uniformity of size across this flock, but we have pretty good uniformity of size across this flock. And this little runt is just so much smaller, than the rest of them. So that becomes a problem for the runts. As the flock grows, they can't continue to reach the food and water. So at this point though, we're just going to keep observation on this runt. Can you imagine the size difference there? Same age birds. It's not optical illusion or camera angle. That little runt is just so small. But anyway, like I said, she's fairly strong. She doesn't seem particularly weak. So we're just going to keep watching her day to day, and as long as she can reach food and water and seems strong, she's going to stay in the flock at large. They're not trampling her. They're not running over her. She seems to get in to any place that she wants to for now. So we're just going to keep an eye on her and see what happens. And incidentally, we haven't had many runts, but the ones we have had have been hens. So I don't know if that's consistent over a large number of birds, but in our experience, there's more likelihood of the runts being hens. It'd be interesting to know if that applies over greater quantities of birds. But like I said, we haven't had many, but the ones that we have had have primarily been hens. So anyway, so going back over here, we're just scanning around the pen, kind of showing you, like I said, there's 220 of them. This flock started out with, I think, 229, either 229 or 232. This is the 4th flock of 2023 for us. So sometimes the numbers and the dates get a little jumbled for me if I don't have it on paper in front of me. But I do think they started out about 232 and we're at 220. So we're very hopeful that we can stay there at 220 with this flock. If we can keep them strong and finish at 220 birds out of what we started with, that's going to be a good finishing percentage for us. So on the water, so we're giving them a vitamin and electrolyte supplement. And so we just get that from our favorite feed store, which in our case happens to be Beverly Feed and Equipment in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. And you can kind of tell when we put it in their water, we just mix it into their water at the rate of about a teaspoon per gallon of water. And when we mix it in there, it makes the water look really bright yellow. It's kind of like Power swamp water for the sports enthusiasts, but it's for growing chickens. And so we use this either in times that are stressful for the birds or that we anticipate are going to be stressful for the birds. And that's why we're using it right now, because we're expecting high temperatures this week, end of this week. So we're trying to give them the vitamin electrolyte boosters now to kind of get ahead of that heat coming, because you want to see your birds stay hydrated. So to keep them hydrated, you need to keep them going to the water. And in addition to the vitamins that they're getting in that vitamin booster, they're also, getting that sodium replenished, and that kind of has the effect of keeping them thirsty. So they desire to go to the water, because when Cornish rock cross meat birds get overheated, their first tendency is to become very, very sedentary, and they stop getting up, stop moving around, and they will forego getting up to eat and drink if they feel overheated or heat stressed. So we're hoping to be ahead of it by giving them the vitamin and electrolyte booster now. So they're actually moving around. The sunlight kind of changed the angle it was coming in at. It gets them kind of excited, kind of stimulated. And so they'll probably now go through a cycle. Most of them will go eat, get a drink of water, and then they'll find a place to sit down again. That one's not very yellow because they had drank it all down, and we've refilled it with plain water. So as they finish the other ones, we've got 3 other 5-gallon ones and 3 1-gallon ones in here. And as they finish those all up, we'll refill them with plain water, and that will have finished a packet of this. And then so we'll probably wait about a day and do this second packet of it, and then we think it's best to kind of take a break from it, and you can use it again if you need to. So thank you for joining us here at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Feel free to give us any feedback there in the comments, and we hope you'll join us back in the barn another time. Thanks.